Have you ever heard the expression beating a dead horse before? I kind of feel like I'm doing that with the flowing hair 2024 gold dollars. And no, there's no sour grapes going on. I honestly was a little bit torn and conflicted about this series when it was first released, but I got my silver flowing hair piece. In fact, I've got two of them. So I don't really feel like I had that FOMO, that fear of missing out. But this is my second update on the 2024 gold flowing hair dollars. I figured there was probably enough interest in the last one that I would do at least one more follow up. So that's what you're here for. If you are new to the channel, my name is Dub C. I want to thank you for being with me here today. For my returning subscribers, thank you guys as always. I was sitting at my desk and it occurred to me that it had been a week since I had done my last update on the flowing hair gold dollar controversy, the auction and the subsequent sales on eBay and so forth. And I was writing down some statistics and checking some facts, and I thought, well, might as well just go ahead and grab my camera and shoot this in case you are interested in following this unraveling drama. I figured you might have some interest in what I was kind of figuring out and what I was finding out. So that's really what this video is about. As a really brief kind of recap, the United States of America, our first dollar coin was the 1794 flowing hair dollar. You're seeing an image of it right now. And the Mint has been releasing kind of new editions of our classic dollar coins over the last several years. We really began in 2021 when it was the 100th anniversary of the last of the Morgan dollars and the first of the peace dollars in 1921. So 100-year anniversary. These coins were both released in 1921, so the Mint released new versions in 2021. And they were pretty successful. They were pretty popular. You can clearly see that I've got examples here. Love the 1921 peace dollar, so the 2021 was a no-brainer for me, and I went ahead and picked up most of the Morgan dollars too. They made them, the Mint made them from the existing mints and then also issued them for the mints that used to exist but are no longer functioning with special privy marks that indicated the mint that they were kind of paying homage to. So this was the first introduction of really the most modern iteration of a privy mark. And I did a really deep dive into the 1794, 2024 silver dollar. If you want to take a look at that, I'll put a link down below. You can find out all the information about the 1794, the idea of privy marks, which is just a special mark on the coin that kind of conveys graphically a bunch of information. It's kind of like a mint mark. So take a look at that video if you haven't seen it. And then the Mint decided in this year, in 2024, to release the first silver dollar, the 1794, in a modern version of it, not entirely unlike the Morgan and the peace dollar that we released in 2021. But this caused a little bit of controversy. The 230th anniversary is kind of a weird, almost arbitrary date to have picked. I almost kind of feel like the Mint shouldn't have glommed onto that so much. You know, the 100th anniversary of the Morgan and the peace dollar, sure, that makes sense. But if you're going to go ahead and recreate the series of America's classic silver dollars, don't focus so much on 230. That's kind of a strange thing to have done. But they did it. It's a done deal. In this year, we released a silver version of that first silver dollar. Here's a version of it. This is one of my examples. And the Mint did a really nice job of it. This is a beautiful coin, no doubt. And let me stop myself there. I actually said this is a beautiful coin. This is not a beautiful coin. This is not a coin because it was never monetized. And I know I've talked about that at length. It is a strange delineation. It's a bit of a specific thing to be talking about, but a coin is monetized if it actually has a face value that has been agreed to by Congress. And that never happened with this. So it's technically a silver medal. For whatever reasons, either Congress didn't want to or wasn't able to monetize these pieces. So in 2024, the Mint released these silver versions of that early silver dollar, and we released 75,000 of them, although there are some people who say that we're holding back some of them. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The original issue price on this was $104 directly from the Mint, and it's interesting because of that 75,000 pieces, 1,794, remember that's the date this was originally released, 1794. 1,794 of these were made with a special privy mark. In this case, it's a small little banner that says 230 on it that you see over here on the right side of Liberty's face. So of the 75,000 that were made, 1,794 had this special privy mark. And of those 1,794, 230 of those came with a signed and numbered certificate of authenticity. And the certificate of authenticity for this piece is actually pretty dramatic. You can see just how big this is and how it unfolds here. So 230 of these signed by the current mint director. His name is Ventris Gibson. And it individually numbered 1 of 230 all the way to 230 of 230. So you had a chance of getting these because it was all luck of the draw. If you were one of the people that ordered one of these silver coins, yeah, I said it again, silver medals, then you had at least a small chance of getting one of these pieces with the privy mark. And if you got one with a privy mark, you had at least a small chance of getting that one with the signed certificate of authenticity. Now, you're probably wondering to yourself, who cares, right? If this is really that big of a deal, does it really make that much of a difference? It's unusual. This is the first time that the mint has really used an identifiable privy mark on a silver medal. You can throw as many different delineations as you want to at that. But it's really one of the first time the mint has done that in modern history. We've got a few other exceptions. We've released some quarters that have a privy mark on them recently. But this was interesting because it was really luck of the draw. It was a lottery. If you bought one of these, you had a chance of getting one of these pieces with the privy mark and with the signed certificate of authenticity. And it makes a difference. There is an example of an MS-70 silver PCGS privy marked coin that sold on eBay on December 16th of this year for $6,000. Now, like I said, the original issue price of these pieces was $104. And this wasn't something that happened 100 years ago. This happened literally a few weeks back. So if you were lucky enough to get one of these silver pieces with the privy mark, the prices have gone astronomical, especially if you can get it into a third-party graders holder like PCGS or NGC or CAC. And it's a 69 or a 70? 70 preferably. 70s are always going to win out. $6,000, and that's not an asking price. That's what this piece actually sold for. That's a pretty phenomenal return on an investment, but that's a really neat thing the mint did for those people who were dedicated enough to order one of these silver medals. They didn't sell out quickly. In fact, I think it took about 48 hours for that original 75,000 or 50,000, depending on whose numbers you're using. So it was kind of a fun thing. It was an exciting thing, and it really drummed up a lot of publicity. Let's stop there. That's enough of the silver. Now, the United States Mint also decided to issue a gold version of this piece. And we've talked about that at length in the 2 subsequent videos. The gold version, because gold is so much more dense, is significantly smaller, but it weighs a troy ounce of pure gold, not unlike the silver piece that you see here. It's 4/9 fine, which is a little bit unusual for the United States Mint. The original mintage of the gold version, and the gold version was monetized, so it is exactly $1 face value. That is significant. That differentiates it from the silver. The mint made 17,500 of those. Now compare that to the 75,000 of the silver. You can see that this is already a significantly smaller number of pieces. The issue price of the gold version, when it was issued by the mint, literally a few weeks ago, $3,690. That's a pretty significant bump over the value of the gold contained within. Let's say the value of the gold was about $2,700 when this was issued. So 17,500 of these issues. Now, there's some folks who only say that 10,000 were issued, but I have a feeling that all 17,500 of these were actually made. Whether or not the mint is holding some of them back, we still don't know yet. It's possible that they are. Of that 17,500, some of those were also issued with a privy mark. It is a significantly smaller number. If you remember from the silver, 75,000 mintage, 1,794 with the privy mark. With the gold, 17,500 issued, only 230 have that special 230 privy mark. And what really made this different, what really made this significant, is that this was not luck of the draw. You, as the average American citizen, or frankly anybody else in the world who had the money, were not able to buy these. These pieces were all encapsulated and graded by the professional coin grading service, PCGS. They were numbered, every single one of them, from 1 to 230 in consecutive PCGS holders. And then each one of those were offered at auction through the private auction company of Stack's Bowers on December 12th of this year, 2024. So there was a lot of drama, a lot of interest, a lot of excitement, a lot of confusion. This was unusual. The Mint has actually offered a couple other items before through a private auction company, but those were incredibly rare, older pieces that had kind of been discovered outside of traditional numismatics. These pieces, the new modern flowing hair gold dollars, were all things that had been issued by the Mint literally a couple of months ago. The Mint had literally created a modern rarity, and there's not really many examples of that ever happening. Now, the Mint, to be sure, has issued pieces that have a very low mintage based on demand. There have been lots of commemoratives that have been issued throughout the last 10, 15 years where the Mint has issued something and the demand just wasn't there. So they were minting these based on the demand from orders that were coming in. And if not many people ordered them, then the Mint just didn't make that many pieces. That's not that unusual. In this case, the Mint set the mintage with the privy marks at 230 pieces, full stop, end of the story. They had intentionally created a rarity, and that is a really uncomfortable precedent for the Mint to have set. But it's done, right? It's already done. Stack's Bowers, all 230 of these, issued sequentially from 1 to 230, were sold at auction on December 12th. Number 1 sold for $440,000. And every one of the other pieces that were issued in this series from 1 to 230 sold. The average price was somewhere around $35,000 to $40,000. You can see how this was not something that the average American could probably afford, if you could have even afforded the $3,690, the original issue price of the non-privy marked gold coins. So this is already putting these pieces beyond the reach of most average Americans, and that has something kind of unpleasant about it also. These are pieces that have come from the United States Mint, and as American citizens, we own the United States Mint. For it to be making something that is out of our reach seems a little unfair or unjust. But again, it's already done. There's nothing we can do about it. Now, I wanted to follow up on all of this information. You've heard all of this probably to some degree, more or less, in the last video that I did, which was immediately following that Stack's Bowers auction, when every single one of these certified, sequentially numbered pieces sold at auction from $440,000 for number 1 to, interestingly, $90,000 for number 230. And everywhere in between, somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000. I'm pretty sure that's the range they sold in. An interesting development. The Mint generated something on the order of $10 million in revenue from doing this. And I indicated in the last video that as a follow-up to that, the very day that these sold, which was December 12th, the day that these sold through Stack's Bowers, number 14 out of those 1 to 230 was sold at auction at Stack's Bowers for, I'm checking my notes here, $38,000 the day of the auction. And the day of the auction, that very piece appeared on eBay listed at $60,000. Now, a lot of these pieces that have become listed on eBay and through other outlets appear to have been sold or being sold by some pretty well-known names in the numismatic field, and that's really not surprising. $10 million is a drop in the bucket for some people, so some one person could literally have bought this entire run and have owned every single one of them, and that's almost non-egalitarian also, right? This isn't the luck of the draw. If you've got the money, you could have bought all of them. And that leaves everybody out in the cold except for that one person. I don't think that happened, but clearly lots of these have been purchased by 1 or 2 big dealers. If they have the money, and they're being sold at auction. It's their right to buy them all. But this is another quandary that the Mint has put itself in, tying the hands of almost everybody. And I think that that's kind of an unfortunate development too. I wanted to follow this up with a couple of other observations. Like I said, I was sitting at my desk looking over some of these auctions, jotting down some notes, and I figured I might as well share this information with anybody who cares about it. If you're still watching, if you've given up, if you're throwing your hands up and just decided this isn't very interesting to you. History is going to tell us a lot about this series. There are many different coins that have been issued by the United States Mints over the last 200 years with very small mintages. Some of them have gained a cult following. Some of them sell in the millions of dollars. I'm thinking about the 1913 V nickel. I'm thinking about the 1804 silver dollars. There are lots of examples where very few pieces are known, but there are also lots of series that have very, very small mintages that are maybe less well known, and they don't have prices that go anywhere near $440,000. Some of them as low as $10,000 or $15,000. But we're talking about pieces that have history, pieces that were struck with really small mintages, and over the last 200 years or 100, 150 years, those mintages have declined through attrition. This is something I talk about a lot on my channel. It's just the loss of pieces due to mishandling, misplacement, theft, melting, whatever. That's not going to be the case with these. In fact, every single one of these pieces, it is logical to assume that they will never degrade at all because they've been sealed in PCGS holders, barring somebody cracking one out for whatever reason. Every single one of these will remain inside these PCGS holders, and it's my understanding that every single one of these pieces grades at least proof 70 decam, if not proof 69, or proof 69 if not 70. So somewhere in the very highest echelons of the Sheldon grading scale. They will almost certainly never degrade. If it ever happens, it'll be through mishandling, misplacement, 10, 15, 30, 50 years in the future, and even that seems somewhat unlikely. These were never meant for circulation. They will never be worn down. They will probably never be harshly cleaned. They will never have a hole driven through them. All of the things that we think of when we think of attrition for older classic pieces, it is incredibly unlikely this will ever happen. So you have this entire population, even if you want to look at the 17,500 original mintage, very few of these will ever see the light of day. They will never make it into circulation. They won't make it into jewelry. It's unlikely that anything will ever happen with these pieces other than being sealed in their nice little clamshell cases or PCGS holders and put in a safe deposit box. So that's interesting to think about also. I indicated that number 14 that had been sold at Stack's Bowers on the 12th for $38,000 and then listed almost instantly for $60,000 on eBay. That piece is no longer listed on eBay. That's an interesting development, and according to eBay's records, that piece did not sell on eBay. So what can you draw from that? eBay is sometimes used as an advertising vehicle. This is kind of a poorly kept secret for lots of industries. If it's gemstones, if it's fine watches, if it's rare coins, this is an opportunity for the seller, generally speaking, a business, to list pieces on eBay that they know full well are never going to actually sell on eBay. They have an established clientele. They have people who check eBay and then pick up the phone and call them. They know who these people are. They go visit their shop. They email them and say, I saw this on eBay. And eBay allows you to close out of these sales without ever actually having completed them. Now, we're talking about something that happened about a week ago. So it seems unlikely that number 14 that is no longer listed has just gone back into the vault and they're not going to do anything with it. I suspect that piece probably sold to a private buyer outside of eBay. eBay doesn't like that very much because eBay is not getting their commission from it. But it happens, and it happens pretty often. I was also looking at some of the other auctions currently listed right now for the Privy Marked 2024 gold dollar. I'm trying to get this as specific as I can. There are currently right at 12 pieces listed on eBay, and they all seem to be in that $55,000 range, and all of them are being offered by one or two dealers, if I remember correctly. Now, if these sold at $35,000 a piece and they're being offered at $55,000, it's clear that every single one of them has the potential to bring these buyers $10, $12, $15,000 in profit. But after a week, according to eBay, only one of them has actually sold. And it listed for $49,000 and actually sold on the 12th of December for $49,000, $49,990. It's actually number 77. I want to make sure that I've got my notes right. Number 77 of that 230. It sold at auction for $35,000, sold on eBay for $49,999. Now, it doesn't indicate that this was a buy it now offer, or rather a make an offer. This looks like it actually sold for their asking price of $49,999, which is a pretty substantial increase, somewhere in the order of $15,000 for a piece that had been bought literally a few hours or maybe a couple of days before. But it's interesting to note that of the dozen that are listed right now, only one of them has actually sold. Again, it's very possible and even likely that some of these pieces have been listed and have been sold privately through these dealers outside of eBay, and those auctions have simply been canceled. Listings, really, because they're not auctions. It's very possible and likely. But it seems like the velocity of buying and selling of these pieces has already kind of slowed dramatically. It's a little bit early to make that kind of observation with any real oomph behind it, but that seems to be what the situation is. A whole lot of sales could be happening outside of eBay. Certainly a lot of these dealers have these pieces, and these prices could be increasing without us even seeing it on eBay. But we have that at least as a barometer, and it seems to be indicating that if after a week only one of these has sold officially through eBay, maybe it means that the interest in these pieces is not as great as some of these buyers thought. Now, I have noticed a couple of these pieces appearing through some of the online chat groups and websites and places like that. So clearly some people are buying them. Remember, there were 230 of these made, and if you wanted one, you had to buy it through Stack's Bowers or through somebody who bought it at Stack's Bowers. There was no other outlet for the privy marked pieces, at least. So a lot of behind the scenes going on, but from the surface at least, it doesn't look like these are moving with any kind of great velocity. And at a certain point, the people that bought these, if that was just a small handful of dealers who bought all or most of these, if they paid $38,000 to $45,000 and they're struggling to sell them at $59,000, that's still a pretty good profit, but it's nowhere near as big as maybe some people thought it would be. The jury is going to be out on this one for a long time. History is going to have to really weigh in with these pieces. It's going to have a lot to do with it. I do find it interesting that the MS69 version of this piece, the silver piece, with the privy mark, with the signed certificate of authenticity, also sold on December 12th on eBay for $14,999. So if you're one of those people who got the luck of the draw from ordering the silver medal with the privy mark, with the COA, you won the lottery. I mean, $100 investment, if you will, selling for as much as $15,000. And we're not talking about 30 years in the future. We're talking literally a few days later. That's pretty phenomenal. And that was exciting. That made this kind of interesting. Is it any more valid? Should the United States Mint have made these with a privy mark on it, knowing that they were creating a rarity, a modern rarity? I think you've got the precedence with the D-Day quarters that are circulating now, with the Victory in Europe Day quarters that have the small V75, I believe it is, privy mark. I'll show a picture of one of those here. These were issued through general circulation, right? You could actually find these and change. So the United States Mint made very few of these, relatively speaking, relative to the number of regular circulating quarters. So they did create a modern rarity with those pieces also. But these pieces were just dumped into change, and anybody can find them if they are lucky enough to look for them and find one. And it's kind of the same thing with the silver privy marked pieces. If you ordered one for $100, which isn't cheap, but most people could probably afford that, you had the chance of winning one of these pieces with the potential of selling for $15,000. That's pretty life-changing money for some people. But the gold is not the same. The gold were privately graded by PCGS. They were sold through a private auction company, Stack's Bowers, who once again didn't make any commission on these, although they did receive a lot of publicity. And you had to have the money to afford these in order to even buy one. They were out of the realm of possibility for the vast majority of Americans, and something about that just doesn't seem right. We've talked about it before. If you didn't see this, the first follow-up, the day of the auction, I'll put a link down to that below also, so you can check notes. You can see what other people in this community and outside of the community, frankly, think about the United States Mint doing this. The overall impression that I got from reading those comments is that nobody really seems to like this very much at all, and that's probably using pretty kind language. There were some pretty angry people about this. And it also sets a precedent for the mint to create modern rarities at the drop of a hat, and eventually they will choke to death the goose that laid that golden egg. People will get so put off by the idea of created modern rarities, especially if the mint does it often. And it's really hard to get that genie back in the bottle once it's been released. That's the fear I think that a lot of senior numismatists have about this. Once that's done, it's done. And this could really cripple the entire idea of mint commemoratives or mint coins or even the coin collecting hobby in general going forward. History is going to have to weigh in on this. If you have any questions about the things that we talked about in this video, by all means leave a question down below. Has your opinion about this changed in the week or so since the auction? Are you completely uninterested in this at this point? Is this still something that you're going to be following? I don't think I'm going to make another follow-up on this, unless something really dramatic and earth-shattering happens with it. Of course, I will report something like that. But I just wanted to touch base, show that after a week, the expectations are still quite high for these pieces, but the reality doesn't seem to be following, at least so far. However, man, that one piece of silver with the signed certificate of authenticity and the Privy Mark selling for $15,000, that's pretty remarkable. And to me, that almost seems like maybe it was a better deal than paying $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 for one of these gold pieces. Interesting. If you have suggestions for other videos you'd like to see me make, even if it's just to say, Dub C, stop making videos about this, I would appreciate you leaving that comment down below. I will read through the comments if you've got ideas. If I've got the knowledge base and the examples, I will be happy to make a video or video series based on your suggestion. And if I do, I will give you a great big shout out. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, go ahead and click on that subscription button. Love to have you be part of this community. It would mean a lot to me. Always be learning, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey as we go deeper into the world of coins and physical precious metals.